Okay, let's field strip a Glock that's a Gen 4. This one has had a grip job, minor grip job on it. That's why it doesn't have finger grooves on the front, trigger upgrade sights. So that's why it looks a little bit different, but it's already been cleared. I'm going to fire the trigger, dry fire it in a safe direction, and then just bring back this slide just at about 1/8 of an inch, just a little bit, so I don't reset the trigger. Hold these down, slide forward, the slide comes off, and top end on all of these pretty much the same. Press and pull out the combination guide rod spring, lift up and pull out the barrel, and then I have a safety plunger, striker assembly. It's held in by this cap, and then there's an extractor push rod there. If you want to know the exact names that Glock loves to call them, just get you one of these pads and read it. I'm going to slip in front of the striker and the this collar and just press to the front, pop off this cap, and then the striker will come out. Use my thumbnail, this push rod comes out, and then just slightly press in on the plunger. Then this extractor should just fall right out. The round part toward the rear, the hook part toward the front, and then this plunger should come out. Might need a little bit of persuasion, but there's a little spring that will easily get lost. You might want to have a spare. Okay, and this versus Gen 5, this one is round. Okay, so a little more of a simple design on the older ones. That spring goes in like that before it goes back in. So we'll just put it in the little tray so we don't lose it. Again, I'd said in the other video, is that a great way to take this striker assembly, these 4 or 5 little parts, is to slip this in reverse and have this tab turned over and blocked there. That gives you a nice little platform to be able to pull the spring down, remove these 2 shot cups, and put them back in. And matter of fact, I just kind of messed it up. So what I'll do is just go ahead and show you. Pull those 2 shot cups out there in halves, and then I can take the striker assembly apart into these 4 or 5 little parts, and then I can put it back together like this. It goes down, the spring goes on the striker spring. This does need to be replaced every once in a while, and that changes how hard it is to press your trigger as well. So I'm going to get these shot cups. I'm going to pull the spring down, and I'm going to slip 1 shot cup in there on that 1/2 of it and rotate it around. Then I'm going to take the other one and put it in there behind the spring, and they're sort of together there. And then when you go up, it will lock behind this edge, little rim there, and it's back together. Okay, and easy as that, pretty straightforward. Now, the difference on the Gen 4 is that it has 3 pins, so I'm going to push out the trigger housing plastic pin on the rear. That can be replaced with a steel one as well. And I guess what I'll do is just go ahead and I like to grab this slide lock and just wiggle it back and forth, this direction and this direction, sort of leverage it with my thumb on this little internal tab, and then push on this pin until I find the sweet spot where it'll pop it out. And that is the difficulty, I think, with Gen 4. Gen 5, they just pop out with a little pressure. And then I'll push out that top pin Then once I push out that top pin, okay, that will allow me to get the, pull the slide lock lever out. It sort of slips into a little slot there, and then I could pry the locking block out. And then at that point, I grab the ejector little rod here, and then the whole trigger assembly comes out, and I have my connector. Now this one versus Gen 5 is actually, it has on the trigger bar, on the front side, it has a little spring, okay? It has a little spring, and this spring, I don't know if you can see this, but it's the spring, it goes like an S. So the hook of the S goes forward and open on the front end where it goes onto the trigger bar. See that? And then it goes under and back upward, fitting through that little hole on the back of the, if you get that wrong, that may cause a problem. But that's the traditional way that a Glock trigger return spring works. The new Gen 5 has a clip on the front with a spring that's compressed. I love this older way. It gives me a lot more control over the trigger reset. So then that's where you would clean it, and you'd put lubrication, little drop on these little rail points, and then drop the shoe back in through the hole, and give me a little trouble. And then the trigger housing would just set right in there. And this is where it gets a little bit different on the Gen 4. What I'm going to do is first put the locking block in, and then this top pin. I'm so used to Gen 5, I've got to stop and think about this for a second. And then you could go ahead and put your trigger housing's plastic pin in the back, drive it in with your thumbnail till it's flush. You could use the punch, doesn't matter. And then the only thing I've got left is you see there's a little clip, little spring clip. Now this actually is a failure point on a Glock, even though a lot of people don't believe Glocks actually break. They can wear, little things can wear out. And this slips into, there's a little slot there that this slips in, and I'm so blind I can't see it, but there's a little slot that fits in, and that spring sort of slides in there. And that's why you have to put that pin in first, so it can slide under that top pin. And then this will the trigger pin will go through, it thread through the top of the trigger shoe, and it's going to have trouble getting through this hole. So that's where you got to sort of manipulate this to find the sweet spot to get through. Some Gen 4's a pain in the ass, and that's why I like the Gen 5, and the Gen 3 is a little bit better. All right, so that lower part's back together. Now let's just toss the upper together. We'll wait on the barrel, do that last. Okay, so what I'll do is I will try to get this safety firing pin, safety plunger in first, get that little spring, and then bring this up through that hole in the slide. All of that's a good place to clean with the Q-tip. Now, once I get it in there, I want to really make sure that this is smooth as glass, no little clicky, springy sounds there where it's in crooked. While that's depressed, I'm just going to slip the, there's probably other ways to do it, but I'm going to slip the extractor in with the round part toward the rear. It'll slip in there, well, and look like that. Okay, look like that. And then I'll slip, if I slip the striker in there next, it should hold all that together. Push it forward as far as you can and let go. It should hold that enough for you to now take this rod, make sure that's pressed on there good, and put the metal in, steel in first. And then that's ready to go. All I have to do is press a little here, enough to get my punch behind this collar, pull it forward, And then the ridged part of this cap is toward the rear. And slip it in there. Hold it so it doesn't come out. Things fly everywhere. And then all I've got to do is press on that, and then the cap will slip forward. I don't like to scratch other people's guns up, so there's just certain ways I do things. And then I'm going to function check, make sure that the striker cannot come out until this safety plunger is smoothly depressed, and then it locks back behind it. I'll do it a couple times, make sure all of that feels real. Man, I really fine-tuned this gun. It's really smooth. I forgot how good this one was. This was a spare carry gun I put together many years ago. What a good gun. Tack driver too. People say they don't like Gen 4 or the barrel or the accuracy or something, maybe the trigger. This one's sweet. All it takes is just a little TLC, and these Gen 4s are just great. Now on Gen 4, I do remove the finger grooves and do a carry texture, and I do take just a slight hint of that hump out of the rear, and then I do a grip job where I sort of smooth out this cut under the trigger job, and then I upgrade the sights with the Trigicon XRs. What else? That's about it. This one does have a Vickers slide stop on it and an Apex trigger shoe, but that's about it. It's just a nice. I'm going to function check it, press the trigger a couple of times, make sure that all feels real smooth, keep it pressed, and then test the reset. Nice and firm, loud reset. That's why I like that. Those older trigger return springs are just way better than Gen 5. Glock always adds some improvements and takes others away. It just pisses you off. But this is the Gen 4 with the forward serrations. This is a special run. Great Gen 4 Glock 19.